What's the matter, officer?
Your windows are illegally tinted. License and registration.
Officer, this is a federal vehicle. The tint is within legal limits.
Shut up. Get out of the car.
I'm a special agent from the FBI. Let me reach for my badge.
Everyone's a cop when they get pulled over. Officer, I'll reach for my badge and registration to clear this misunderstanding.
No! Don't fool me. You're reaching for a gun.
Officer Bruce Mercer was 34 years old, with 8 years on the force, when he fabricated a traffic violation to stop a man whose appearance didn't match his assumptions. Mercer had survived 14 citizen complaints and 3 internal investigations, his confidence inflated by a department that never held him accountable. On a quiet Tuesday evening, he pulled over a Dodge Charger with legally tinted windows, ignored the driver's repeated identification as a federal agent, and deployed his taser 3 times on an incapacitated man lying face down on the pavement. What Mercer didn't realize, couldn't possibly comprehend in his arrogant certainty, was that Earl Colton wasn't just any FBI agent. He was a 12-year veteran who specialized in investigating civil rights violations and police misconduct. Mercer hadn't stopped a suspect. He had tased his own prosecutor. Earl Colton had spent 12 years building a reputation at the FBI's Atlanta field office as someone who got results. He specialized in violent crimes and interstate gang operations, testifying before grand juries 17 times. His colleagues respected his meticulous nature, his calm under pressure, and his understanding of how power structures operated, and how they could fail. On a Tuesday evening in June, Colton was driving home after meeting a confidential informant. His Dodge Charger was registered to the FBI motor pool, equipped with legally tinted windows per federal specifications. The tint wasn't cosmetic. It was a security measure for undercover operations and agent safety. The radio played softly as he drove through Riverside County, a suburban jurisdiction 40 minutes outside the city. Officer Bruce Mercer had been watching Colton's vehicle for 3 blocks. Mercer's 8-year career with Riverside County Police told a troubling story. 14 citizen complaints, 3 internal investigations, 2 suspensions without pay. Yet he remained on patrol duty, working evening shifts where supervision was minimal and officer discretion was broad. The patrol car's lights erupted in Colton's rearview mirror as he approached a red light. Colton signaled and pulled into a well-lit gas station parking lot. He placed both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, his phone visible on the dashboard. These were the movements of someone who understood exactly how traffic stops could escalate. Mercer's voice crackled through the loudspeaker before he even exited his vehicle. "Driver, keep your hands where I can see them." When Mercer approached, his flashlight aimed directly at Colton's face, despite the interior dome light already being on. Colton spoke calmly. "Good evening, officer. Can you tell me why you've pulled me over?" "Your windows are illegally tinted." Mercer's hand rested on his service weapon. "License and registration. Now." Colton had expected many possible reasons for a stop. This wasn't one of them. "Officer, these windows are tinted to federal vehicle specifications. This is a government vehicle registered to the FBI. The tint is well within state legal limits." "I'll be the judge of that," Mercer said, his jaw tightening. "License and registration." "Of course. I'm reaching into my center console now to retrieve my credentials and vehicle registration. I'm informing you that I'm a federal agent, Special Agent Earl Colton, with the FBI." Mercer's expression shifted immediately, not toward professional courtesy, but toward hostility. "Federal agent?" His laugh was sharp and derisive. "Right. Everyone's a cop when they get pulled over." Colton stepped out of the vehicle with deliberate slowness, announcing each movement before making it. He had trained other agents in de-escalation techniques, had written portions of the Bureau's guidelines on constitutional policing. The irony of his current situation was apparent, but not surprising. He recognized what was happening. "Officer, the tint on these windows measures at 32. Or 32%, Colton explained evenly. State law allows up to 35%. Additionally, federal vehicles carrying law enforcement personnel are explicitly exempt from local tint regulations. The documentation is in the glove box, if you'd like to verify. Mercer kicked the door wider and ordered Colton's hands on the hood. I don't need to verify anything. What I need is for you to stop running your mouth and do what you're told. Colton complied, placing his palms flat on the warm metal. Inside, his mind was cataloging everything. Mercer's body language, the absence of backup, the positioning of the body camera on Mercer's chest. Every detail would matter. You can verify my identity with one radio call to dispatch, Colton said. Special Agent Earl Colton, badge number 34782, Atlanta Field Office. This vehicle is registered to the FBI motor pool. Everything I'm telling you can be confirmed in less than 60 seconds. But Mercer wasn't interested in verification. He accused Colton of claiming to be FBI, of driving around with illegal modifications, of thinking he was above the law. Each accusation revealed more about Mercer's predetermined conclusions than about Colton's actual behavior. Colton understood in that moment that nothing he said would change Mercer's narrative. The officer had decided who Colton was before the stop even began, before the lights went on, before the first word was spoken. Credentials wouldn't matter. Logic wouldn't matter. The truth wouldn't matter. Mercer's hostility wasn't about window tint. It was about control. It was about power. It was about assumptions made based on Colton's appearance that no amount of federal identification would overcome. I'm going to reach for my credentials, Colton announced clearly. They're in my right hip pocket. I'm moving slowly. You can watch my hands the entire time. Mercer's response would change both of their lives forever. Colton's hand moved toward his pocket with exaggerated slowness, fingers extended, palm visible. He had seen enough use of force reports to know how quickly situations could deteriorate. He was doing everything right, announcing movements, maintaining visibility, staying calm. Mercer drew his taser. Gun! He's reaching for a gun! The declaration was loud, theatrical, performed for the body camera recording. Colton had heard these exact words in dozens of case files he'd investigated. This was the preemptive verbal justification that would appear in police reports, the false grounds officers created to legitimize force they'd already decided to use. That is not true, Colton stated clearly, hands now raised above his head. There is no gun in my pocket. My service weapon is secured in the vehicle's glove box per federal protocol. I am a federal agent attempting to show you my credentials as you requested. On the ground! Now! Colton calculated his options in milliseconds. Physical resistance would give Mercer justification for lethal force. Verbal de-escalation seemed futile given the officer's apparent rage. Compliance meant humiliation and probable injury, but it meant survival and accountability. Officer Mercer, Colton read the nameplate, committing every detail to memory. I am going to comply with your instructions, but I need you to understand that you are making a serious mistake. You can verify my identity right now. This vehicle's registration will confirm it belongs to the FBI. I am not a threat. Mercer closed the distance between them as Colton began lowering himself toward the ground. Colton kept his hands visible, announcing each movement. I'm kneeling now. My hands are above my head. I am not reaching for anything. Mercer deployed the taser without warning. 50,000 volts surged through Colton's body. He collapsed, every muscle seizing involuntarily. The pain was electric, all-consuming, rendering him unable to speak or control his movements beyond convulsive jerking. His face struck the pavement, the impact drawing blood. For a moment, Colton thought it was over. Then Mercer tased him again. Colton's body convulsed on the ground, muscles locked in spasm from the second taser deployment. He couldn't speak, couldn't move voluntarily, couldn't protect his face from the pavement. Blood pooled beneath his cheek, where it had struck the concrete. Mercer triggered the taser a third time. This deployment served no law enforcement purpose. Colton was fully incapacitated, hands nowhere near his body, posing no threat to anyone. The third shock was pure malice, pure assertion of dominance over someone Mercer had decided needed to be taught a lesson. You want to pretend you're FBI? Mercer stood over Colton's twitching form, breathing hard. Let's see how tough you are now. Those words were captured clearly on the body camera audio. Words that would later be played in a federal courtroom. Words that would be analyzed by prosecutors and dissected by expert witnesses. Words that revealed this wasn't policing. This was an assault. During the tasing, Colton's credentials had fallen from his pocket, landing on the pavement a few feet away. The leather credential case lay open, the gold FBI badge visible, the photo identification card bearing Colton's image and official seal clearly displayed. Mercer moved behind Colton and wrenched his arms back, applying handcuffs to wrists still trembling from electrical shock. Colton struggled to breathe, each inhale a battle against muscles that wouldn't properly respond. His face throbbed. His body felt foreign, disconnected. Mercer keyed his radio, his voice now controlled. Official. Dispatch, show me code 4 with one in custody. Had a combative suspect who reached for a weapon. Send backup for transport. The narrative was being constructed in real time. Combative suspect. Reached for a weapon. Each phrase would appear in reports, each word designed to justify what the body camera had actually recorded. An unprovoked assault on a compliant federal agent. Colton couldn't speak yet, but his mind was cataloging everything. Every word Mercer said, every action taken, every deviation from proper procedure. He had investigated enough cases to know exactly what evidence would matter. He just had to survive long enough to ensure that evidence was preserved. The first backup unit arrived 6 minutes after Mercer's call, an eternity when measured in Colton's labored breaths, but standard response time for a non-emergency call. 2 officers emerged from their patrol car expecting to assist with a dangerous suspect in custody. Instead, they found Colton on the ground, face bloody, hands cuffed behind his back, struggling to breathe from repeated taser deployments. The scene didn't match Mercer's radio call. Officer Calder, a 15-year veteran with a reputation for professionalism, approached cautiously. His eyes moved from Colton to Mercer to the ground, where something caught his attention. He knelt down. Bruce, these are federal credentials. Calder picked up the leather case carefully, examining the badge and identification card. The gold shield gleamed under the parking lot lights. The photo ID showed Colton's face. The official FBI seal was unmistakable. Mercer snatched the credentials from Calder's hands. His face drained of color as he stared at the badge, the identification, the reality of what he'd just done. The transformation was instant and complete, from aggressive authority figure to panicked civilian who had just assaulted a federal agent. He was reaching. Mercer's voice had lost all its commanding edge. I thought. The second officer was already at his patrol car's computer, running the vehicle registration. He looked up, his expression grim. Bruce, this car is registered to the FBI. Federal government vehicle. Calder picked up his radio, his tone professional but urgent. Dispatch, we need a supervisor at this location immediately. We also need to notify the FBI Field Office Atlanta. We have an agent-involved incident. Repeat, agent-involved incident. Colton had recovered enough to speak, though his voice was hoarse. I want this documented. Every word spoken. Every action taken. Secure that body camera footage immediately as evidence. This is now a federal investigation. The power dynamic had inverted completely. Mercer was no longer a cop investigating a suspect. He was a civilian who had just committed multiple felonies against a federal law enforcement officer, and everyone present knew it. Within 20 minutes, the parking lot transformed into a crime scene. Colton the victim, Mercer the perpetrator, and the body camera footage of the star witness. The parking lot was filled with vehicles bearing different insignias: FBI, Riverside County Internal Affairs, County Sheriff. The routine traffic stop had become an interstate incident requiring coordination across multiple agencies and jurisdictions. FBI supervisors arrived first, recognizing Colton and immediately requesting medical attention for him. While paramedics examined the taser marks and facial injuries, investigators began the methodical process of evidence preservation. They photographed the scene, documented the positions of the vehicles, and, most importantly, secured Mercer's body camera and uploaded the footage to FBI servers. The video was devastating to Mercer's account. It showed Colton complying with every instruction Mercer gave. It captured Colton announcing his status as a federal agent multiple times in a calm, professional tone. It recorded Colton explaining his credentials were in his pocket and announcing his intention to retrieve them. Not once did Colton make a threatening movement. Not once did his hands move toward where a weapon might be. The footage captured Mercer's theatrical shout of "Gun!" a claim the video itself contradicted. It recorded all 3 taser deployments, including the final 2 on a man already incapacitated on the ground. And most damning, it captured Mercer's words. "Let's see how tough you are now." An Internal Affairs lieutenant commandeered Mercer's patrol car and found the window tint meter in the trunk. He measured Colton's windows while multiple witnesses observed 32% light transmission. The state legal limit was 35%. The windows weren't just legal, they were well within compliance. Moreover, a simple records check confirmed that federal law enforcement vehicles were explicitly exempt from state window tint regulations when carrying agents or conducting official business. Mercer had either never measured the tint or had measured it, found it legal, and initiated the stop anyway. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an error in judgment. This was a fabricated violation used as pretext for a stop that should never have happened. By midnight, the preliminary investigation had established enough facts for the FBI's Civil Rights Division to open a formal case, not just into this incident, but into Mercer's entire pattern of behavior. The FBI's Civil Rights Division assigned 3 agents to examine Mercer's complete history with Riverside County Police. What they discovered was systematic misconduct hiding in plain sight. Over the previous 18 months, Mercer had initiated 47 traffic stops for illegal window tint. When investigators cross-referenced these stops with department demographics data, a clear pattern emerged. 41 of those stops, 87%, involved minority drivers. Only 6 of the 47 stops had resulted in actual citations. The rest had ended in warnings or had escalated into vehicle searches. Of the 6 citations issued, 4 were later dismissed when defendants provided documentation proving their window tint was legal. Mercer had been writing tickets for violations that didn't exist. The investigators pulled body camera footage from every one of these stops. The same pattern appeared repeatedly. Mercer would claim windows were illegally tinted. The driver would attempt to explain or provide documentation. Mercer would become hostile and accusatory, and the interaction would escalate. In 12 cases, Mercer had ordered drivers from their vehicles and conducted searches. Searches later determined to lack probable cause. But the institutional failure went deeper than one rogue officer. The investigators found complaints submitted to Mercer's supervisors about his stop patterns. These complaints had been dismissed as unsubstantiated, or filed away without investigation. Department training records showed officers had never been instructed on proper window tint measurement procedures. There was no quality control, no oversight, no accountability. 3 supervisors had received multiple complaints about Mercer's conduct and had taken no corrective action. 2 had explicitly praised his productivity and proactive policing in performance evaluations, apparently interpreting his high stop numbers as dedication rather than as evidence of potential constitutional violations. Colton spent 8 hours giving his formal statement, 60 pages documenting not just what happened to him, but his professional analysis of the systemic failures that had allowed Mercer to operate unchecked for years. The investigation expanded to 14 officers, including 2 supervisors, who had either participated in similar conduct or had actively enabled it through willful ignorance. The state attorney general, under intense pressure from federal authorities and facing overwhelming evidence, convened a grand jury. The indictment against Officer Bruce Mercer contained 5 counts: aggravated battery on a law enforcement officer, deprivation of rights under color of law, assault with a dangerous weapon, filing false police reports, and obstruction of justice. The maximum combined sentence was 15 years in federal prison. Mercer's defense team attempted every available strategy. They argued he had feared for his safety during the encounter. The body camera footage completely refuted this, showing Colton complying with every instruction. They suggested Colton hadn't adequately identified himself as a federal agent. The audio recordings proved he had stated his identity, badge number, and field office multiple times. They claimed Mercer had made split-second decisions under stress. The prosecution countered that Mercer had tased Colton 3 separate times, the final 2 deployments occurring when Colton was already incapacitated and handcuffed. The prosecution methodically dismantled each defense. They presented the tint meter readings proving the windows were legal. They showed the jury Mercer's pattern of stops, targeting minority drivers. They introduced complaint records that supervisors had ignored. They played the body camera audio of Mercer's words, "Let's see how tough you are now," and let that evidence speak for itself. Expert witnesses testified about proper use of force standards, explaining that each taser deployment after the first constituted assault, not legitimate law enforcement action. FBI supervisors testified about Colton's exemplary record and the psychological impact of the assault. The trial lasted 4 days. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. U.S. District Judge Linda Redmond's sentencing statement was unsparing. "Officer Mercer, you fabricated a legal justification to stop a federal agent who was committing no crime. When he identified himself professionally and offered documentation, you escalated to violence. You tased him 3 times while he was incapacitated and posed no threat. Your actions weren't policing, they were assault under color of law." Mercer received 12 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. His law enforcement certification was permanently revoked. Colton filed a civil lawsuit 3 months after the criminal conviction. He sued Mercer personally, the Riverside County Police Department, the police chief, and the 3 supervisors who had received and dismissed complaints about Mercer's conduct patterns. The lawsuit detailed not just the assault, but the institutional failures that had enabled it. The settlement negotiations lasted 6 weeks. The final agreement, $8.5 million. But the monetary damages were secondary to what Colton truly sought. The consent decree attached to the settlement mandated comprehensive reforms, complete overhaul of traffic stop training with emphasis on constitutional policing standards, implementation of an independent civilian review board with subpoena power to investigate complaints, mandatory body camera usage with automatic termination for any officer who deactivated cameras during citizen encounters, early warning system to flag officers accumulating. complaint patterns, explicit prohibition on pretextual stops for minor equipment violations without documented measurements, and 5 years of federal monitoring to ensure compliance. 14 officers were terminated during the implementation of these reforms, including the 2 supervisors who had enabled Mercer's misconduct. Colton returned to duty after 3 months of recovery. He was promoted to supervisory special agent and now leads constitutional policing training programs at the FBI Academy in Quantico. He lectures to new agents and visiting law enforcement officials, using his own experience as a case study in what happens when officers forget that badges confer responsibility, not immunity. His Dodge Charger, with its legally tinted windows, is displayed at the FBI training facility as a tangible reminder that assumptions based on appearance can destroy careers and lives. Bruce Mercer is currently serving his sentence at FCI Terre Haute Federal Prison. His earliest possible release date is 2035. His wife filed for divorce 6 months into his incarceration. His police pension was revoked under provisions allowing termination of benefits for officers convicted of felonies committed under color of law. The case became mandatory training material for police academies in 7 states. The Department of Justice cited it in pattern and practice investigations of 3 other departments with similar pretextual stop patterns. In Riverside County, officers now carry functioning tint meters and must document actual measurements before initiating stops for window violations. The fabricated pretexts that Mercer used for years are no longer possible. Because sometimes authority meets authority, and when it does, the one who honors their oath survives what the one who violated it cannot.